Hi everybody, thank you for joining us today. My name is Ryan Wilk. This is my colleague and my business partner, Crystal Alanis. We are attorneys here at Reddy Neumann PC, and we were hoping to put together a short, maybe 10-15 minute informative video on what to expect when you're expecting in the Perm labor certification process. And so this document, this Perm, we can call it a few different things, a Perm, a labor certification, an ETA 9089. So there's a lot of ways that you could call it. And so Crystal, first and foremost, what are the steps involved with filing this Perm?
Yeah, so I think what a lot of people don't know is that there are multiple steps to actually get to that place where we can file the labor certification with the Department of Labor. So the first thing we typically do is we have to discuss with the client, what are the job details for this role that the beneficiary is being sponsored for, and what are the minimum requirements for this position. Once those details are finalized, then we'll move over to submit what's called a prevailing wage request to the Department of Labor. So the Department of Labor is going to issue us a prevailing wage determination based off of these job details for the sponsored Perm position. And just a little bit of background, the prevailing wage is the wage that the position must be offered at a minimum, and it's going to be based on multiple factors. Once the prevailing wage determination is issued, then we'll move over to the recruitment step of the process. And this is the recruitment is the main reason, for Perm. The company is going to have to test the U.S. labor market to ensure that U.S. workers are not being displaced by hiring a foreign worker into this permanent position.
And those recruitments, what are some things that the companies might do for the recruitments?
Yeah, so they have to, for example, run a job order with the state workforce agency, and they have to do that for a certain amount of time. They have to place the advertisement in a Sunday newspaper for two Sundays, and then they have to, for example, they can place the advertisement on their company website, a university posting. So there are different places that the employer is required to post this advertisement.
Okay, so you've run your recruitment, what next?
Yeah, so once recruitment is done, and when I say recruitment is done, that means that they are completely through, any interviews that they had to conduct if they received resumes from U.S. workers. So once that's completed, then they would finally move on to filing the Perm labor certification application with the Department of Labor.
You do that online, right?
Yes, it's done online.
Okay, so we know that there's maybe 4 steps within this Perm. We talk to our client, we get the requirements of the position, we get the prevailing wage, we run the recruitment, we finally submit this thing. So let's maybe talk about those first couple steps. How long is it going to take at a minimum to get that Perm application to the Department of Labor?
So right now we're looking at about 8 months to actually file the labor certification with the Department of Labor. And that's because the processing time for the prevailing wage determination is pretty long right now. They're taking about 6 months to issue prevailing wage determinations. Once that's issued, then the company will begin that recruitment process, and that's going to last a minimum of 60 days.
Gotcha. And so we're maybe looking at 8 months to get the prevailing wage and to get that recruitment taken care of.
Right.
And so now I've got those things ready, and we think that we're ready to actually give this application to the Department of Labor. How long is it going to take me to receive that approval once I've submitted everything?
So right now, the Department of Labor, we're seeing on average take about 6 months, maybe a little bit over. Their normal processing that they're showing online is 7 to 8 months, but like I said, on average, we're seeing about 6 months to issue an approval on the labor certification if there's not an audit issued.
So we're talking maybe 8 months for those first 3 steps, and then once we've submitted it, another maybe 6 months.
Right.
So we're thinking 14 months all told from the day that you decide that you want to start this thing to the day that you get the approval. Would you agree?
Yes, based off of the current processing times.
And so just in your experience, does it kind of ebb and flow, or should we be expecting this for a while? What has been your experience maybe in the past 2 years or so?
Yeah, so the processing times on the prevailing wage side and on the actual adjudication of the Perm application has been quite long. Last year we were seeing Perm applications take about 7 months to be approved. Same thing for the prevailing wage determination. I would say 6 months is quite a bit of time right now. We were seeing about maybe 4 to 5, and it's increased to 6. So that's taking a long time right now to be issued on that side. We were seeing the Perm adjudication improve to 5 months. Now it's gone back up to 6 months. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have an average processing time of 7 months again, which that's the longest I've seen it since I've been practicing.
Okay, so It's going to take a while for us to get this labor certification approval. What are some things that we could possibly do to hurry that up, to expedite it?
Yeah, so unfortunately, there is not premium processing available for the Perm labor certification process. So not available for the prevailing wage determination, not available for the actual Perm application. But what companies can do is start recruitment while they're actually waiting on the prevailing wage determination to be issued. So they begin recruitment within that 6 months that the prevailing wage is pending, and then by the time they receive the prevailing wage, hopefully recruitment is completed, and then we can move on to actually submitting the Perm application. So you're looking at submitting the Perm application at 6 months versus waiting 8 months to submit.
So typically we would say, like in the non-expedited way, we would get the prevailing wage done, and then we would run our recruitment.
Right.
You're saying now, while the prevailing wage is pending, go ahead and run the recruitment. What are some risks that might be involved with that?
So one of the risks is if you start recruitment too early. And that's because recruitment is only valid, those advertisements are only valid for 180 days. So if you run it too early and the prevailing wage isn't issued, the prevailing wage determination isn't issued yet, the advertisements will expire, you'll have to run recruitment again.
And what if maybe you run the advertisements, say at the job offer is $100,000, and then the prevailing wage comes back for $110,000? What would be the scenario there?
Right, so sometimes the prevailing wage determination does come back unexpected. Something, might come back higher than what the employer is willing to offer the position at, and at that point we have to go back to the beginning of the process to kind of talk through that to see what we need to do, but that would require the company to start everything over again, submission of a new prevailing wage request, and then advertisements as well.
Here's an interesting question, and I don't think it would matter, but what if the prevailing wage came back less than what you were advertising? Would that be a problem?
No, because the position has to be offered at least the prevailing wage. Okay. If the offered wage for the job is higher than that, then that's completely fine.
And so over the last 2 years or so, we've seen a pretty sizable jump in the processing times, right? Has the DOL given you any indication, or have they given the field any indication of why things are taking so long?
Yes, I believe it was last year they stated that they just didn't have an increased budget, but they have a lot more applications. So that just tells me that it's just a capacity issue at this point.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we're now through the labor certification process. We finally have this approved labor certification after all of this time. So Ryan, what can be done at the Perm stage to expedite the I-140 process once we get to that point?
Okay, so I think maybe the idea is that today I got that email from the Department of Labor that the Perm's approved. What can I do to file my I-140? The I-140 is really your next step. What can I do to file that today, maybe tomorrow? What can I do to file this thing ASAP? What I would tell to my potential client is you want to have your education and your experience documentation taken care of. That's by and large going to be the two biggest factors in whether your case is going to be approved or not, is whether you can prove that you have the education and the experience that Perm would require. And so education, if you have a US degree, that's typically just the diploma that you get, that nice thing that you put on your wall. You don't need to give us that, maybe just a picture or a PDF of it, along with the transcript, just showing that you did take that program and you graduated. If you were from a foreign degree, those same things, the transcript and the degree diploma, but we would also recommend that you obtain a education evaluation. You don't necessarily need to do it before the Perm stage, but I would heavily recommend doing so. Just to make sure that you're not finding yourself in a situation that you could have really otherwise avoided. If maybe, okay, so we talked about education. The other is experience. And so USCIS likes to see what I would maybe call the perfect experience letter, which is on the old employer's letterhead, features the job title, the dates of employment, and the duties performed in that position. That for me, that's the perfect document. If we can't get that, there are a few fallbacks. One is that you could maybe get some colleague affidavits, someone that you worked with in that position, that they can attest to your working there. Other documents are maybe job offer letters, job resignation letters, deputation letters, maybe you were put on a new project. Just documents confirming your name with this company to back up our claims that you work for them. For me, if we can't get that perfect letter, what I like is your W-2s from the years that you were working with that company, or maybe if it was a foreign employment that you had, if it was Indian, the Form 16s or whatever that foreign equivalent of the W-2 might be. And I've never seen USCIS push back on those. And so in terms of what can we do to be prepared to file our I-140 once the perm is approved, I would say get your education documents in order, get an education evaluation if you need it, and make sure that you have those experience letters ready. I would even say as a best practice, you would maybe want to have those experience letters to present to your attorney so that they can make sure that whatever they're putting on the perm is as accurate as it possibly can be.
And yeah, and that's especially true if there's a special skill requirement for the position, because the
Very important.
USCIS is going to require that those specific skills be listed on the experience letter.
Yep, exactly.
Have you seen where the employee can't obtain the perfect letter?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen USCIS accept just affidavits alone, no additional
I would
letter?
try to provide some additional support. I could rack my brain and I can't really remember one where it was just the affidavits that were straight accepted. Usually they'll want to see something a little bit more weighty. So if you just have the affidavits, maybe that's not the best. Add in your W-2s from that company from the time that you were there, as well as maybe the job offer letter that they gave you at the very start when you were interviewing for that company. Maybe if you resign, they'll probably give you back some letter confirming the same. And so ultimately what we're trying to do is just show the government that it's more likely than not that I was employed with that company. And so things like the W-2s, for me, that's a pretty strong evidence.
Okay, and what about a situation where they do, like you said, they just have the relieving letter, which usually includes job title and the period of employment, and they have two affidavits? Does it make a difference if those affidavits come from a manager versus just a coworker that they may have had?
No, I would think as long as the affiant, the person who's signing that affidavit, reasonably knows about the duties that you're performed, it can be a lower level position, a lateral position, or your boss, so to speak. So for me, it doesn't matter who it comes from as long as that person can reasonably attest to whatever it is that they're saying in the affidavit.
Okay. So now that we're done with the I-140, is there anything that the individuals can do to also prepare in advance for the I-485, which is the final step of the green card process?
Okay, so for a lot of Indian clients, the 485 is a thought way into the future. But if your priority date's current, maybe you're an Indian with a current priority date, or if maybe you're in the rest of the world category, things that you'll want to have ready come your 485 is going to be the birth certificate. If you're married and you're trying to get a green card for your spouse or have them join your 485, their birth certificate as well as the marriage certificate. And then if you have any children, non-US citizen children who are going to be joining you, and I would probably say under the age of 21, you want to have their birth certificates as well. And that's pretty much it on the 485 side.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
I mean, there's always so much that we could talk about. I think we could talk about Perm and I-140s all day long. I don't think we'll take your time for that today, but we're always, Crystal, myself, as well as our partners, Rahul and Emily, put on weekly or bi-weekly videos, educational videos like this. And so if you're interested in a little bit more information, you can get into contact with us, subscribe to our newsletter. I would suggest visiting rnlawgroup.com. So on behalf of Crystal, on behalf of our firm, I'll thank you for your time today and hope that we can work together in the future. Thanks.